The week we were supposed to be choosing wedding flowers, I started receiving text messages from an unknown number. The first one appeared while I was sitting at my desk during lunch. "Your wedding will never happen." I stared at the screen, assuming it was some kind of prank. A few minutes later, another message arrived. "I'm going to destroy everything you've planned." My stomach tightened. Then came the third. "Walk around looking over your shoulder. One day I'll throw acid in your face." I couldn't breathe. It didn't feel like a stupid joke anymore. It felt personal. It felt like someone genuinely hated me. At that moment, I had been with my fiancé, Daniel, for almost 6 years. We weren't one of those couples who rushed into marriage after a whirlwind romance. We had built our relationship slowly. We met while we were both still trying to establish our careers. Neither of us had much money. Our weekends were cheap dinners, long walks through the city, and talking about the future we hoped we could eventually afford. We worked hard, saved carefully, supported each other through promotions, setbacks, family problems, and stressful years. By the time Daniel proposed, getting married didn't feel like the beginning of our relationship. It felt like celebrating everything we had already survived together. That's why those messages hit me so hard. They didn't just threaten a wedding. They threatened 6 years of trust. I waited until Daniel came home that evening before showing him my phone. He read every message twice. His face went completely pale. "What is this?" he asked quietly. "I was hoping you could tell me." The silence between us felt unbearable. Neither of us wanted to ask the question that was already hanging in the room. Was there another woman? Had someone from his past discovered our engagement? Was there something he hadn't told me? Finally, I asked, "Daniel, is there anything I should know?" He looked genuinely hurt. "No." "Are you absolutely sure?" "I swear to you. I've never given anyone a reason to send something like this." I wanted to believe him. But fear has a way of making even the strongest relationship feel fragile. Over the next 2 days, more messages arrived. Each one was crueler than the last. "You won't even make it to your wedding dress. Enjoy planning your wedding while you still can. I'm watching you." I barely slept. Every time my phone vibrated, my heart raced. Daniel became just as anxious as I was. He insisted on driving me to work. He picked me up every evening. He started checking every unfamiliar car parked near our apartment. At one point, we even discussed postponing the wedding until we understood who was behind the threats. That conversation broke my heart. Not because I doubted Daniel, because I suddenly realized someone else had gained control over our happiness. And I hated that feeling. Daniel refused to let it end there. "If someone is trying to destroy us," he said one evening, "I'm going to find out who." He contacted a friend who worked in telecommunications and asked whether the number could be traced. A few days later, he came home unusually quiet. "I found something." I looked up immediately. "The number isn't registered to a private person. So whose is it?" He hesitated. "It's assigned to a company." "What company?" He told me the name. The moment I heard it, I felt my entire body go cold, because someone I knew worked there. Not just someone, one of my closest friends. Emily. We had been friends for years. She knew everything about my relationship. She had celebrated our engagement. She had helped me try on wedding dresses. She had listened to me talk for hours about flower arrangements, honeymoon plans, and future children. She wasn't just another friend. She was part of my everyday life. "There has to be another explanation," I whispered. Daniel nodded. "I hope there is." I wanted to believe it too, because accepting the alternative meant admitting that someone who smiled in my face might have been secretly trying to destroy the happiest moment of my life. For 2 days, I refused to believe it. I kept telling myself there had to be another woman working in that company, another employee who happened to have access to the same corporate phone, another explanation, anything except the obvious one. Emily had been beside me through almost every important moment of my adult life. She knew Daniel well. The 4 of us had gone on weekend trips together with friends. She had laughed with us over dinner. She had cried when Daniel proposed because, according to her, she had never seen 2 people more perfect together. How could someone like that send messages threatening to destroy my life? Daniel never pressured me. He simply said, "I'm not accusing anyone, but we can't ignore what we found." Neither could I. So instead of confronting her immediately, I decided to watch. For the first time in years, I paid attention to the little things. Whenever we met for coffee, she asked endless questions about the wedding. Had we chosen the venue? How much had we paid? Who was coming? Where were we spending our honeymoon? Had we signed the final contracts yet? Before, I thought she was simply excited for me. Now every question felt different, almost investigative. A week later, we met for lunch. She smiled exactly the way she always had. "So," she said, stirring her coffee, "everything ready for the big day?" I forced myself to smile back. "Almost. I can't wait." Neither her face nor her voice revealed anything unusual. If she was the one behind those messages, she was an incredible actress. When I got home that evening, Daniel asked, "Did you tell her?" I shook my head. "No." "Why?" "Because if she's innocent, I'll destroy a friendship for nothing." "And if she's guilty?" I looked out the window. "Then sooner or later she'll make a mistake." That mistake came much sooner than I expected. A few days later, another message arrived. "You still think you're getting married?" This time, however, something was different. Instead of deleting it, Daniel carefully compared the exact time it had been sent with something Emily had posted online. She had uploaded a photo from work only minutes earlier. The timestamps matched perfectly. It still wasn't absolute proof, but it made coincidence feel much less likely. From that moment, I slowly began creating distance. I stopped calling her every day. I stopped inviting her over. If she suggested meeting for dinner, I politely said I was busy. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse her. I simply stepped back. She noticed. "Have I done something?" she asked during one phone call. "No," I answered calmly. "I have just been overwhelmed with wedding planning." She laughed. I know the feeling. The irony almost made me sick. The threatening messages eventually stopped. As suddenly as they had started, they disappeared. No explanation. No confession. Nothing. Daniel and I decided not to let fear win. We hired additional security for the wedding. We informed the venue. We warned close family members. And then we got married, despite everything. The ceremony was beautiful. Every few minutes I caught myself looking over my shoulder, expecting something terrible to happen. Nothing did. When Daniel took my hand during our vows, I realized I had been holding my breath for weeks. For the first time in months, I finally exhaled. After the honeymoon, life slowly returned to normal. Daniel and I focused on our careers. A few years later, our first child was born. Then our second. The wedding became a distant memory. The messages became a story we almost never talked about. Emily disappeared from our lives without any dramatic confrontation. No accusations. No public arguments. No revenge. Just silence. Sometimes silence says more than any fight ever could. I honestly believed that chapter of my life was over. I was wrong. Because 6 years later, her name appeared again. And this time, it wasn't on my phone. It was on my husband's new employee list. When Daniel accepted the new position, we celebrated. It was a better company, better salary, better opportunities. After years of working hard and raising 2 children, it felt like the beginning of another good chapter in our lives. Then one evening he came home looking strangely uncomfortable. "There's something I should tell you." I looked up from helping our youngest with homework. "What is it?" He hesitated. "I recognized someone during orientation." My stomach tightened immediately. "Who?" He took a slow breath. "Emily." For a second I honestly thought I had misheard him. "Emily? He nodded. "Your former friend." Neither of us spoke for several seconds. It was amazing how one name could pull me back 6 years in an instant. The anonymous messages, the sleepless nights, the fear, the uncertainty, everything I had spent years leaving behind suddenly returned as if it had happened yesterday. Daniel walked over and sat beside me. "I wanted you to hear it from me." "I'm glad you told me. I didn't want someone else mentioning it first." I appreciated that more than he probably realized. There were no secrets between us anymore. That had become one of the strongest foundations of our marriage. A few days later, I finally asked the question that had been bothering me. "Do you have to work with her directly?" "Not really." "Different department?" "Yes." "You'll probably only see each other occasionally." I nodded slowly. "Does it bother you?" He looked down at his hands before answering. "Honestly? Always. It does." I wasn't expecting that answer. I thought maybe I was the only one still thinking about what happened. Daniel shook his head. "I've never forgotten." He leaned back in his chair. "I don't even know if she actually sent those messages." "I know, but I also know what happened after we traced that number." "So do I. And I've never been comfortable around her since." Neither had I. The strange part was that I wasn't afraid she would steal my husband. That wasn't what kept me awake. After 12 years together, 6 years of marriage, 2 children, Countless ordinary Tuesdays and difficult Mondays. Trust wasn't something we questioned anymore. Daniel had earned it. Every single day. What bothered me wasn't jealousy. It was memory. Because every time I heard her name, I remembered being 29 years old, sitting in my apartment, with my phone shaking in my hands, after reading another threat. I remembered wondering whether the man I loved had been lying to me. I remembered questioning everything we had built together. That kind of fear leaves a mark, even after the danger disappears. A few weeks after Daniel started the job, I finally asked him the question I'd been avoiding. "Have you spoken to her?" He nodded once. Only once. "What happened?" She walked into the break room, looked at me for a second, smiled politely and said, "Congratulations on your family. Your kids are adorable." I frowned. How would she know that? Our company website has employee family events. He shrugged. I said thank you. And then I walked away. That was it? That was it. I looked at him carefully. "You don't have to leave your job because of me." He smiled sadly. "I know, but if another opportunity comes along, you'll take it?" He nodded. "I don't want our family carrying unnecessary stress." That sentence nearly made me cry. Not because he was offering to leave. Because he understood. He wasn't running away from Emily. He was protecting our peace. There's a difference. Over the following months, nothing dramatic happened. Emily never contacted either of us. She never crossed any boundaries. She never tried to speak to Daniel outside of ordinary workplace situations. From everything he told me, she behaved professionally. Ironically, that almost made everything harder, because there was no new conflict to solve, only an old wound that occasionally reminded me it still existed. Sometimes healing isn't about defeating the person who hurt you. Sometimes it's learning that they no longer have power over your everyday life. That lesson took me years, and I think I'm finally beginning to understand it. The truth is, I don't know with absolute certainty that Emily was the one who sent those messages. The number was traced back to the company where she worked. The timing fit, the circumstances fit. And after that discovery, I chose to quietly walk away from the friendship. Could there have been another explanation? Maybe. Life doesn't always give us the certainty we wish for, but sometimes the facts we do have are enough to tell us that a relationship is no longer safe. For years, I wondered whether I should have confronted her. Asked her directly. Demanded answers. Now I know it wouldn't have changed anything. If she denied it, I'd still have questions. If she admitted it, it wouldn't erase what those weeks had done to me. Some doors don't need dramatic endings. Sometimes they simply need to stay closed. Today, Daniel and I have been married for 6 years. We have 2 beautiful children. Our home isn't perfect. Our lives aren't perfect, but they're peaceful. And I've learned that peace is worth protecting. When Daniel told me he'd leave his job if another opportunity came along, not because he was guilty, not because he was afraid, but simply because he wanted me to feel safe, I realized something. The frightened bride who once questioned everything no longer exists. Back then, anonymous messages almost convinced me to doubt the man I loved. Today, after 12 years together, I know exactly who he is. He has never hidden his phone, never given me a reason to question his loyalty, never dismissed my feelings even when he couldn't fix the situation. Instead, he listened. He reassured me. He stood beside me. Again and again. Trust isn't built by grand romantic gestures. It's built by thousands of ordinary decisions. Honesty, consistency, respect. Showing up every single day. That's what we've done for more than a decade. Sometimes people ask whether I'm worried that Emily now works in the same company. The honest answer is, no, not in the way they expect. I'm not afraid she'll steal my husband. People aren't possessions. Healthy marriages don't collapse because 2 people share an office building. If a relationship can be destroyed that easily, the problem was never another woman. The problem was the relationship itself. What I do feel is something much quieter. I don't want someone connected to one of the darkest weeks of my life, anywhere near my family's world. Not because she has power over us, but because some memories simply don't deserve a second invitation. Thankfully, Daniel understands that without me having to explain it over and over again. He's already keeping professional boundaries, and if the right opportunity appears elsewhere, he'll move on. Not out of fear, out of love. Looking back now, I don't think this story is really about anonymous messages, or weddings, or even betrayal. I think it's about learning who deserves permanent access to your life. Not everyone who laughs with you is your friend. Not everyone celebrating your happiness is actually happy for you. And not every relationship deserves endless second chances simply because it lasted a long time. Sometimes protecting your peace means quietly walking away without ever getting the explanation you hoped for. I used to think closure came from answers. Now I think it comes from acceptance. I accepted that I may never know exactly what happened all those years ago. And surprisingly, that no longer bothers me, because my life isn't defined by those messages anymore. It's defined by everything that happened after them. A husband who chose me every single day. 2 wonderful children. A home filled with laughter instead of fear. And the certainty that some of the people we lose were never truly meant to walk beside us in the first place. So let me leave you with this question. Have you ever quietly walked away from someone because your peace became more important than getting the truth? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next one. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.